Reginald here. It's time to talk Strategist. Here are 5 core concepts for playing support that will help you play better. Countering, healing, not dying, prioritization, and preemption. Just like the last guide, this is not meant to be exhaustive. It's a foundation for you to build on, with practical ideas that can apply regardless of your skill level. Let's go. Number 1, countering.
Feel the wrath of the goddess!
Disappear!
Support's first goal is always to heal, but their strongest output is countering. I'm sure this will change, but right now, in the meta, triple support is considered dominant. The reason for that is simple. DPS and some tank ults are actually so powerful they can instantly win teamfights, and the only way to prevent that is a counter via support ult. Countering is your job because countering is what turns a losing teamfight into a winning one.
Good medicine. Jury! Executioner!
In fact, I'd argue this is half the reason the term strategist applies more to these characters than other characters and roles, and more than the term support. We'll talk about the other half of that later. Countering actually has some sub-concepts, so let's talk this out. Number 1. First up is ult countering. One of the most important things a strategist can do is identify who on the enemy team is going to have a strong but counterable ult. Then track the rough pace of the enemy's ult generation and use their own support ult to counter that ult. A non-exhaustive list of character ults most supports can counter include Punisher, Bucky, Star-Lord, Storm, and Doctor Strange. Some ults that either cannot be countered or are really hard to are Iron Man, Magneto, and Moon Knight. The last one is mostly due to a bug. Simply by identifying who you are going to counter with your ult and who you are going to let ult, you enhance your gameplay instantly to the next level. I will not ult for this is as strong as I am countering Bucky right now, because without the first, you do not get the second. Number 2. Coordination. People make mistakes, it does happen, but you should at least be talking to your other support players to make sure they know whose turn it is to drop their support ult. Unless you've got a rocket or a soilfish on your team, in which case, who cares? The key idea here is to pick ults you know are most likely to result in complete team wipes for you, and have either one of those in mind for the support to counter ult. When I play support, I like to make Luna Snow or Cloak and Dagger the default first ult because I play Invisible Woman most often. Mine is shorter and a bit harder to fight around, and there's a higher probability that, say, the Bucky or Psylocke will both ult during her ult and waste it than my ult. Number 3 is ability countering. Supports often have crowd control abilities. Mantis Sleep, Luna Freeze, Invisible Woman actually has 3, Push, Pull, Vortex, and Shield, etc, etc. In any case, your job is to look at the enemy roster, understand their abilities, and how your abilities can counter theirs, and then deploy your cooldowns as appropriate. The single strongest example of this is Invisible Woman playing into Wolverine. She can actually shut down his Kidnap and Dash with Vortex and Push or Pull, plus her shield can actually be used to heal and mitigate damage against Wolverine's targeted tank. She's just about as much of a hard counter to Wolverine's game plan as there is. Understanding how to deploy your cooldowns to foil his game plan every time can be the difference between a win and a loss. Another really good example of this is just shoving Doctor Strange away when he's about to Eye of Agamotto everyone. Number 2. Healing. Let's not sugarcoat this. If you're playing support, you have one job that is more important than anything else you can do. That's healing. No one else on the team can do this. Health packs aren't enough. It just is the most important thing you can be doing. That means that you better do it. If there's ever a choice between healing someone and dealing damage, your answer in almost every single situation should be to heal. There's caveats, like with everything else, but please just remember this is the area you're probably failing at the most if you're losing games as a support. Turn around, look for the low guy, even the flying one. I want to give just one example. A caveat here. I'm in Grandmaster, but I was at the time stuck in Plat Elo Hell and trying to work out what I was doing wrong in this stream. Here's a critical game failure I made while playing Luna. I was poking an enemy and failing to pay attention to the people around me I could have topped off, and that cascaded into their deaths shortly after in an otherwise winnable situation. Learn from my mistake. It's almost always better to heal first and damage later. Number 3, not dying. Stop dying. It's simple. Okay. I can give you a little more than that. Let's be serious. Not dying is a key support skill. If you are dead, you cannot heal, and the enemy team wins that team fight. It determines your survivability, healing effectiveness, and impact on the battlefield in general. If you are too far back, you won't be able to assist your front line and might become easy pickings for divers and flankers. If you're too far forward, you risk becoming an easy target. I will say, however, good positioning for a support has fewer questions than it does for a DPS. Your job isn't really to take spicy angles, it's to stay alive. So think about these concepts when thinking about where you are fighting from. Line of sight. Can you see your allies and provide healing or buffs without exposing yourself to unnecessary risk? Cover. Are you near solid objects that allow you to break line of sight with enemies quickly? Escape routes. Do you have a clear path to retreat if you get dived on by an enemy, say a flanker? Enemy threats. Who on the enemy team can even dive or snipe you? If there's a Psylocke hunting you down, you are going to need to adapt accordingly. You might even want to play tighter to your team. Teammate awareness. Can your team actually protect you if you get engaged? Standing close to your tank or someone else can sometimes keep you alive. In fact, it might keep you alive just by shoving the enemy directly in their line of fire. Sometimes, if your team are a dense bunch of rocks, they may never help heal for you, or they may be incapable of doing so effectively. When you get flanked repeatedly and are dying to it, it's often best to just play right inside your team's cheeks. If the enemy has to hit your entire team to hit you, your team might even notice. Otherwise, assuming a bit more competence, you should be looking for solid and safe places to stand that allow you to push in or back out as needed to keep your team alive. I want to help make this simple for you, so let's go to my unpatented MS Paint enhanced overhead view. I took this right out of one of my actual games. I was playing Invisible Woman. I was at the very back of the cart, and I am going to be making my way into this new zone of combat. Things have actually already kicked off. We've lost Psylocke and they've lost Rocket to our Thor. Where is a good place for me to stand? Well, when playing Sue Storm, for starters, it would take me a long time to get up high, but even if I did get up high, I'm not going to get a lot of advantage of my ability to penetrate with shots, so I'm not going to take the high ground, even though I would have a good commanding field of view and multiple escape routes. Invisible Woman tends to just feel the best on low ground positions. So I could take the position that Loki currently has behind the cart, using it as cover and moving up with it. Not a bad position at all, that's probably why he's there. The position I took, which I think is also adequate, is kind of by this rock, this corner here. Let's use my own list to explain. From this position, I have good line of sight to all of my allies and enemies so that I can shoot who I need to shoot. And I'm definitely not overcommitted or overexposed here because I have hard cover immediately to my right with this big rock that serves as a nice right angle. In fact, here's a view of exactly what Punisher could see if I were to dip around that right-hand rock. As you can see, the rock itself actually covers quite a bit of territory. He can't really shoot. Let me show you an overhead again, what his line of sight would look like from his perspective. I have 2 lanes of escape, as a matter of fact. I can escape through the gate back this way, or I could hop over the cart and get behind it to stand next to Loki. There are no divers that I need to worry about, but there are a number of enemy threats that are concerning. The Bucky could have ult, though I know he doesn't. There is a Punisher here who is in his turret, and the only reason I'm not worried about this Captain America is because he's running away from my team right now. But I'm probably in about as safe a position as I can be within visual range of the Loki and assistance range of the Bucky and Captain America. So based on my own criteria, this is a pretty reasonable position to hold. Let's see how it plays out.
Time for some fireworks.
Armed and dangerous! Again! Again!
Yeah, it was kind of a roll, so maybe not the best example, but at the very minimum, you get my point. I didn't die because I didn't stand in the wrong spot, and that was my whole job. Number 4, prioritization. Knowing who to heal, shield, or buff at any given moment is what separates good supports from great ones. Your priority list should sort of generally be something like yourself. If you're dead, you can't heal anyone. Number 2, other supports. If the enemy is focusing on your fellow support, help them unless they can help themselves. A team with 2 supports will always out attrition a team with 1 support because you're going to have to reload eventually. Number 3, tanks, especially your main tank. That's the tank that initiates fights and face rubs the enemy, is going to definitely be taking the most damage in lower elo games and still eat plenty in high elo games, so keep them alive since they're literally your line. DPS. You do need to actually keep an eye on your DPS players. If you can provide them with health, you should. Not every healer is going to be able to provide health to every DPS in every circumstance, but it is a priority for you to top them off as you can and keep them alive. Especially if your DPS in particular is popping off and doing really well that game, you might want to give them a little extra attention to help facilitate successful aggressive plays on their part. A Punisher that is reliably going absolutely ham with his ult may be worth keeping alive at the expense of other players in order to secure a win. Number 5, Preemption. As a support, you need to be aware of the battlefield at all times. You're not just watching health bars, you're the player with the best view in the room because you are standing behind everyone and can see everyone else. This is the other reason why supports are really quite properly named strategists. The world is not ideal, but if it was, strategists would actually have a proper thirst for blood, tempered by patience and forged in knowledge of the tempo of the match. They'd be making the callouts and telling the team when to push, who is low, and what is about to happen because they can actually see more than anyone else. The tank can only see the enemy team in most cases. The DPS has weird off angles blocking their view, but you can see mostly everything. Your job is to be anticipating the enemy's action and positioning yourself for maximum effectiveness and safety. Do not wait until someone is about to die before acting. Look at the enemy's next few moves and figure out where you can be to avoid dying and provide effective heals rapidly and counteract enemy actions. If you know Punisher is going to ult, there's probably a right angle corner you can fight by that hard counters his ultimate. If you see an enemy flanker approaching, start repositioning to save yourself and others early. When I play Invisible Woman, when I see a good Spooter man coming or a Venom swinging in for a dive, I hop out right away and become invisible. This actually makes them predictable. They're now going to be going for the other support, and I will then peel for that support with my shield and heals and shoves and vortexes. If you see that a team fight is pretty much cooked, tell your team it's time to bail out and help them pull out alive. Preemption means understanding what is going to happen soon and taking actions that mitigate that. Getting a sense and intuition for the flow of the battle is very easy to do on support, and it's actually something I recommend for other types of players. If you're a DPS player, you're a tank player, go play some support because you will actually see how games play out more frequently so that you can have that intuition in your mind when you're playing in those other roles. It will help you. I hope this guide gives you some food for thought on your journey to mastering support. Let me know if you'd like a deep dive on specific heroes in the future. Right now, I'm working on a little series of really bad plays that you should not do that you can learn from, and you can watch a few of those shorts right now. Until next time, warm regards.
Reginald.
I would like to take a moment to express my genuine and significant gratitude to Bonehead for becoming my first Oath Taker level member. Your support really does mean a lot to me and has made it so much easier for me to continue to justify the amount of effort I pour into this channel. I'd also like to thank Miles Williams Lewis and Joseph Davison for supporting my channel through my Adept level membership. Your atypical support really means a lot to me and I appreciate it. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the rest of my members. Support helps the channel a lot. If you would like to become a member of this channel, there is a link in the description below and a join button next to the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for visiting. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.